Chosen one, a knock is coming. The blessing at your door will change everything. What if the next knock on your door isn't just another delivery, another neighbor, another ordinary interruption to your ordinary day, but the exact moment you've been quietly praying for without even realizing it? What if you've spent so long assuming your breakthrough would arrive dramatically from somewhere far away that you've completely overlooked the possibility it might simply walk right up to your front door instead? I want you to actually picture your front door right now, exactly as it looks today, because something is coming toward it. And tonight, you're being told to actually pay attention when it finally arrives. You've probably spent so much energy looking outward for your breakthrough, scanning distant possibilities, imagining your answer arriving from somewhere far removed from your actual ordinary life. And in all that outward searching, you've likely trained yourself to overlook the mundane, everyday moments happening right at your own threshold, assuming nothing significant could possibly arrive through something as ordinary as a knock on your own front door. Have you been so focused on searching for your breakthrough somewhere distant and dramatic that you've overlooked the possibility it could arrive through something completely ordinary right at your own door? Why blessings often arrive through the most familiar, unremarkable doorways. Here's something worth understanding clearly. Throughout countless stories, both ancient and modern, significant blessings have consistently arrived through the most familiar, unremarkable doorways, rather than through elaborate, obviously miraculous circumstances. A knock at the door, a phone call you almost didn't answer, a conversation with someone standing right in front of you. The familiarity of the setting has never disqualified the significance of what actually walked through it. Can you think of a time in your own life when something significant arrived through a completely ordinary, unremarkable moment, rather than a dramatic one? Why you might have already missed similar knocks before? Here's something worth considering honestly, without shame attached to it. This likely isn't the first time something meaningful has knocked, literally or figuratively, and you weren't fully ready to open the door and receive it. Maybe you were too distracted, too skeptical, too consumed by your own private worries to notice what was actually standing there. Recognizing that pattern now doesn't mean you failed before. It simply means you're finally being given the awareness to respond differently this time. Can you recall a moment where something meaningful might have arrived unexpectedly, and you weren't fully present or ready to actually receive it? Why this blessing requires you to actually answer, not just hear it. Here's something worth understanding clearly. Hearing a knock and actually opening the door are two completely different responses. Many blessings, arriving right at the threshold of someone's life, go unanswered simply because the person heard the knock, registered it faintly, and then continued on with whatever they were already doing, assuming it wasn't important enough to interrupt their current activity. Tonight's message is specifically asking you to actually get up and answer, rather than simply acknowledging the sound from a distance. Have you been the kind of person who hears the metaphorical knock, but doesn't actually get up to answer it, assuming it can wait until later? If this is landing somewhere real in you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 2 goes even deeper into exactly what this blessing might actually look like when it finally arrives. Why this blessing might not look the way you've been expecting. Here's something worth preparing for honestly. The blessing arriving at your door might not match the exact picture you've built in your mind about what your breakthrough is supposed to look like. It might arrive disguised as an uncomfortable conversation, an unexpected opportunity you initially want to decline, a relationship you didn't anticipate needing in your life. Staying too attached to one specific expected form might cause you to overlook the real thing, simply because it didn't match your mental blueprint. Are you holding so tightly to one specific expectation of what your blessing should look like that you might miss it if it arrives differently? Why you've been avoiding answering, because answering requires change. Here's something worth naming honestly. Part of the reason people hesitate to fully answer when something significant knocks is because answering requires change, and change, even good change, is genuinely disruptive to whatever comfortable routine currently exists. If part of you has been quietly avoiding full attentiveness lately, that avoidance might actually be a subtle resistance to the disruption this blessing would inevitably bring into your current, familiar life. Has some part of you been avoiding full attentiveness lately, specifically because you sense that answering fully would require real, disruptive change? Why this blessing was timed specifically for this exact season of your life? Here's something worth considering with real significance. This blessing isn't arriving randomly, disconnected from everything you've walked through recently. It's timed specifically for this exact season, precisely because you're finally ready in ways you weren't during earlier seasons of your life. What you've survived, learned, and grown through recently has prepared you specifically to receive and steward exactly what's coming toward your door right now. What has this current season of your life specifically prepared you to receive that earlier seasons might not have equipped you for? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because Part 2 continues exploring exactly how to recognize and receive this fully. Why you don't need to know exactly what's coming to stay ready for it. Here's something worth releasing right now. The need for complete certainty about exactly what this blessing will be before you're willing to remain genuinely attentive and ready for it. You don't need a detailed preview. You simply need to stay awake, aware, and willing to actually answer when the knock finally comes, trusting the significance of the moment even without knowing every specific detail in advance. Can you stay attentive and ready, even without knowing every specific detail of what's actually coming toward your door? Truth for tonight. Something significant is genuinely approaching your life, and it may arrive through something as simple and ordinary as an actual knock at your door, or through a moment that functions the exact same way, unremarkable on the surface, significant underneath it. Your job tonight isn't to predict exactly what it will look like. It's simply to stay awake, stay willing, and actually answer when it finally arrives, rather than letting it pass by unnoticed the way so many meaningful moments quietly do. If you committed to staying fully attentive over the coming days, ready to actually answer whatever knocks, what do you believe you might finally receive? You've spent so long searching outward for your breakthrough, overlooking the ordinary, familiar doorways where meaningful blessings have always been capable of arriving. Tonight, you're being asked to simply stay awake, stay ready, and actually answer when something knocks. This is only part 1. Part 2 goes deeper into exactly how to recognize this blessing clearly and how to fully receive it once it finally arrives. If this message reached something real in you tonight, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because part 2 continues exactly where this left off. The knock is coming, stay ready to answer it. In part 1, we talked about the significance hiding in ordinary, familiar doorways, and why you need to actually answer the knock rather than simply hearing it from a distance. So today, let's go further. How do you actually recognize this blessing clearly when it arrives, especially if it doesn't look the way you expected? Because knowing you need to answer is one thing. Actually identifying what's genuinely knocking versus what's simply noise or distraction is where this journey becomes practical. Are you ready to learn how to actually recognize it? Here's what tends to happen even after someone commits to staying attentive. They start second-guessing every single ordinary occurrence, wondering if this random opportunity, this unexpected phone call, this new person entering their life, is the actual blessing they've been told to watch for. That constant second-guessing can become exhausting, leaving you anxious and unsure rather than genuinely peaceful and ready. Have you found yourself anxiously second-guessing every ordinary occurrence, unsure whether it's the actual blessing you've been told to watch for? Why genuine blessings often carry a specific kind of peace, even when they're disruptive. Here's something worth understanding as a helpful marker. Genuine blessings, even when they require real change or disruption to your current life, tend to carry an underlying sense of peace alongside whatever discomfort the change brings. That's different from anxiety-driven opportunities that might look appealing on the surface, but leave you with a persistent unease underneath. Peace and disruption can coexist. Anxiety and genuine blessing typically cannot sustain that same coexistence for long. Does whatever you're currently considering carry an underlying peace alongside its disruption, or does it leave you with persistent, unsettled anxiety instead? Why this blessing often aligns with something you've already been quietly preparing for. Here's something worth examining honestly. Genuine blessings frequently align with skills, healing, or growth you've already been quietly developing, even if you can fully understand why at the time. If something arriving in your life connects unexpectedly well with recent lessons you've learned, recent growth you've experienced, or recent healing you've walked through, that alignment is worth taking seriously as evidence. This is genuinely what you've been prepared to receive. Does what's currently arriving in your life align unexpectedly well with growth or preparation you've already experienced recently? Even if you didn't understand its purpose at the time, why this blessing might initially look like more work, not less. Here's something worth preparing for, honestly, because this often surprises people. Genuine blessings don't always arrive looking like relief or ease. Sometimes they initially look like more responsibility, more effort, a genuinely demanding opportunity that requires real sacrifice before its full value becomes clear. If you're specifically expecting your blessing to feel effortless and immediately comfortable, you might dismiss something genuinely valuable simply because it initially requires more from you than you anticipated. Are you expecting your blessing to feel effortless and comfortable immediately, when it might actually require real effort and sacrifice at first? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because part 3 goes even deeper into exactly what to do once you've genuinely recognized this blessing. Why trusted people in your life can help confirm what you're sensing. Here's something practical worth doing as you try to discern this clearly. Talk honestly with 1 or 2 genuinely trusted people in your life about what you're sensing, without needing them to make the decision for you, but simply to offer outside perspective on whether what you're describing sounds genuinely aligned with growth, or whether it sounds more like anxious impulse. Trusted outside perspective often catches blind spots your own excitement or fear might be creating. Is there someone trusted in your life you could talk to honestly about what you're currently sensing, to help confirm or clarify your own perception? Why this blessing rarely repures you to compromise your actual values. Here's an important discernment marker worth understanding clearly. Genuine blessings, regardless of how demanding or disruptive they might initially appear, rarely require you to compromise your core integrity, your honesty, or your genuine values in order to receive them. If something arriving in your life requires you to lie, manipulate, or betray something you know is genuinely right in order to access it, that's a significant warning sign, regardless of how appealing the surface opportunity might seem. Receiving what's currently arriving in your life require any compromise of your genuine values or integrity, even in small ways. Why this blessing will likely try you to let go of something first. Here's something worth preparing for honestly. Many genuine blessings require releasing something first, before there's actually room to receive what's coming. That might be a specific fear, a specific habit, a specific relationship dynamic that's been taking up space that this new blessing actually needs in order to fit into your life. Identifying what you might need to release in advance can actually help you receive this more fully once it arrives. What do you sense you might need to release or let go of in order to actually make room for what's approaching your life right now? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because Part 3 continues exploring exactly how to fully receive and steward this blessing well. Why waiting for absolute certainty before responding often causes you to miss the window entirely. Here's something worth understanding about the actual timing of discernment. You rarely receive 100% certainty before you're required to actually respond to something significant. Most genuine opportunities require you to move forward with reasonable confidence, informed by the markers we've discussed tonight, rather than waiting for absolute, undeniable proof that eliminates every trace of uncertainty. Waiting for that level of certainty often means the window closes before you've finally decided to respond. Are you waiting for a level of certainty that might never fully arrive, when reasonable confidence based on these markers is actually enough to move forward? Truth for today. You can recognize this genuine blessing by the underlying peace it carries even through disruption, its alignment with growth you've already quietly experienced, its potential to require real effort rather than immediate ease, and its consistency with your genuine values rather than any compromise of them. Trusted outside perspective can help confirm what you're sensing, and reasonable confidence, rather than waiting for absolute certainty, is what actually allows you to respond in time. Based on everything we've walked through today, what do you honestly believe is currently knocking at your door? You've learned something today that moves this entire journey from vague anticipation into practical discernment. How to recognize genuine blessing through underlying peace, alignment with your recent growth, willingness to require real effort, and consistency with your genuine values. Stay attentive. Stay discerning. Trust reasonable confidence rather than waiting for impossible certainty. There's more ahead. Part 3 goes into exactly how to fully receive and steward this blessing well, once you've genuinely recognized it. If this message is helping you see more clearly, subscribe now, because Part 3 continues exactly where this left off. you're closer to recognizing it now. Stay ready. The counterfeit knocks designed to fool you. What if, right before the genuine blessing finally arrives at your door, several counterfeit knocks show up first, deliberately designed to look almost identical, hoping you'll open the door too early, pour your trust into the wrong thing, and grow so exhausted by disappointment that you stop answering altogether by the time the real one actually comes? What if the reason you've hesitated so much lately isn't weakness or indecision at all, but a quiet, unconscious wisdom warning you that something standing at your door recently wasn't actually what it claimed to be? Tonight, we finish this entire journey by walking through something almost nobody talks about honestly. Not every knock is genuine, and learning to tell the difference might be the single most important skill this entire series has offered you. You've probably answered a knock before, excitedly, hopefully, convinced this was finally the breakthrough you'd been waiting for, only to discover, weeks or months later, that it wasn't actually what it first appeared to be. Maybe it was a relationship that looked like genuine partnership, but slowly revealed itself as something draining and one-sided. Maybe it was an opportunity that looked like your long-awaited financial breakthrough, but turned out to be built on instability that eventually collapsed. That kind of disappointment doesn't just hurt in the moment. It quietly teaches you to distrust every future knock, even the genuine ones. Have you answered a knock before that initially looked like exactly what you'd been praying for, only to discover later it wasn't genuine at all? Why counterfeits exist? Specifically because the genuine thing is so valuable. Here's something worth understanding clearly, because this reframes the entire existence of counterfeit knocks. Nobody bothers counterfeiting something worthless. Counterfeit currency exists because real currency has genuine value. Counterfeit relationships, counterfeit opportunities, counterfeit spiritual experiences exist specifically because the real versions of these things carry enormous, life-changing significance, significant enough that something would go through the trouble of imitating them convincingly. The very existence of counterfeits circling your life right now is, in a strange way, evidence of exactly how valuable your genuine blessing actually is. Does it change how you view the counterfeits you've encountered? Realizing their existence actually confirms how valuable the genuine blessing must be. Why counterfeit knocks always rush you, while genuine owns can afford patience. Here's one of the clearest, most reliable markers worth understanding deeply tonight. Counterfeit opportunities almost always create artificial urgency, pressuring you to decide immediately, warning you that hesitation will cost you everything, that this specific chance will never come again if you don't act right this second. Genuine blessings, by contrast, can almost always afford you the time to think clearly, to pray honestly, to consult trusted people in your life, without collapsing the moment you ask for reasonable space to consider it fully. Has something demanding urgent, immediate commitment from you recently, refusing to allow any space for careful, honest consideration? Why counterfeit knocks often isolate you from the people who know you best? Here's a specific pattern worth watching for carefully, because it shows up with striking consistency across counterfeit experiences. Something genuinely deceptive often subtly encourages you to distance yourself from your closest, most trusted relationships, discouraging you from discussing this new opportunity or relationship openly with the people who've known you longest and would most likely notice something concerning. Genuine blessings almost never require that kind of isolation. They tend to welcome scrutiny from people who genuinely love you, rather than needing you separated from their honest perspective. Has anything recently encouraged you to keep it private from the people who know you best, discouraging open discussion with your closest relationships? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because more of these protective truths are waiting for whenever your next season needs this kind of discernment. Why counterfeit knocks often tear you to abandon who you already are. Here's something worth examining honestly about a critical difference between genuine and counterfeit blessing. Genuine opportunities generally build upon who you already are, your genuine values, your genuine character, your genuine gifts, rather than requiring you to fundamentally abandon or betray them in order to receive what's being offered. If something arriving in your life requires you to become someone dishonest, someone compromised, someone unrecognizable to your own conscience in order to access it, that's one of the clearest warning signs available that you're facing a counterfeit rather than the genuine thing. Has anything recently required you to compromise or abandon core parts of who you actually are, rather than building genuinely upon your existing character? Why counterfeit knocks often promise everything with nothing required from you. Here's a pattern worth understanding clearly, because it's counterintuitive to how many people think about genuine blessing. Counterfeit opportunities frequently promise extraordinary results while requiring almost nothing genuine from you in return. No real effort, no real growth, no real sacrifice. Simply an easy, effortless transaction that sounds too good to actually be true. Genuine blessings, even wonderful ones, almost always require your genuine participation and investment. They rarely arrive as something completely passive that costs you absolutely nothing at all. Has something promised extraordinary results while requiring surprisingly little genuine effort or investment from you personally? Why your own peace, examined honestly over time, is the most reliable counterfeit detector you have. Here's something worth trusting more deeply than any external checklist tonight. Your own genuine peace, examined honestly across an extended period of time, rather than just an initial excited reaction, remains one of the most reliable indicators available to distinguish genuine blessing from convincing counterfeit. Counterfeits often produce an initial rush of excitement that gradually curdles into unease the longer you sit with them honestly. Genuine blessings tend to produce the opposite pattern, growing more settled and peaceful the longer and more honestly you examine them. When you examine your current situation honestly over time, does your peace grow more settled, or does unease gradually increase the longer you sit with it? If this is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because there's more waiting for whenever your next season needs this kind of protection. Why being fooled by a counterfeit doesn't disqualify you from recognizing the genuine thing next time. Here's something worth releasing completely tonight, especially if you've genuinely been fooled by a counterfeit before. That experience doesn't disqualify you from successfully recognizing the real thing when it finally arrives. If anything, it sharpens your discernment significantly, teaching you exactly which warning signs to watch for that you might have missed the first time. Your past mistake becomes, quietly, part of your preparation rather than permanent evidence that you're incapable of correctly recognizing genuine blessing. Can you release any shame about having been fooled by a counterfeit before? Understanding that experience actually sharpened your discernment for what's coming next. The final truth. Counterfeit knocks exist specifically because the genuine blessing is valuable enough to be worth imitating. They rush you where genuine blessings allow patience. They isolate you where genuine blessings welcome honest, outside perspective. They require you to abandon yourself where genuine blessings build upon who you already are. They promise everything for nothing where genuine blessings require real, honest participation. And your own peace, examined honestly over time, remains one of your most trustworthy guides through all of it. You are now equipped, more fully than when this entire journey began, to actually recognize the real thing when it finally, genuinely arrives. If you applied everything across this entire 4-part journey to whatever is currently knocking in your life right now, what do you honestly believe you'd discover? Series finale. You've walked through this entire journey. From first understanding that blessings often arrive through ordinary doorways, through learning to genuinely discern and recognize them, through stewarding what you receive well, and finally, tonight, learning to distinguish the genuine knock from every convincing counterfeit that might arrive before it. You are ready now, more fully than you've probably ever been, to actually answer correctly when the real knock finally comes. If this series meant something real to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because there's always another message waiting for exactly the moment you need it most. And this channel isn't finished showing up for you yet. The counterfeits will keep coming. But now, finally, you know exactly how to tell the difference.